The hospital cafeteria smelled like disinfectant and cold coffee. Lisa sat in the corner booth, still wearing her blue scrubs from the night shift. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and dark circles under her eyes told the story of another sleepless night at work. She picked at her sandwich without really eating it. Around her, other hospital workers chatted and laughed, but Lisa preferred the quiet. She had learned that keeping to herself was safer, for everyone. Mind if I sit here? Lisa looked up to see a man holding a lunch tray. He was tall with kind eyes and wearing the green uniform of the physical therapy department. She had seen him around the hospital but never really talked to him. Actually, yes, I do mind, Lisa said softly, not trying to be rude but being honest. It's better if you find somewhere else to sit. Most people would have walked away, maybe felt a little hurt or confused. But this man just stood there for a moment, studying her face like he was trying to read something important. Why is that? He asked gently. Lisa sighed and put down her sandwich. She was tired of this conversation before it even started. Because people who get close to me end up getting hurt? I'm not being dramatic or trying to be mysterious. It's just the truth, so please find another table. She expected him to laugh or make some joke about how that was impossible. Instead, he pulled out the chair across from her and sat down. What are you doing? Lisa asked, a little panic creeping into her voice. Well, you said not to get close, he said, opening his own sandwich. So I'll just sit here quietly. At a safe distance. Sometimes people just need quiet company. Lisa stared at him. In all her years of pushing people away, no one had ever responded like this. Did you not hear what I just said? I heard every word, he replied, taking a bite of his sandwich. You said people who get close to you get hurt. So I'm not getting close, I'm just sitting here eating my lunch, same as you. But you're still here, Lisa pointed out. Yes, but I'm all the way over here, he said, gesturing to his side of the table. That's got to be at least 3 feet. Totally safe distance. Despite herself, Lisa almost smiled, almost. You're making fun of me. Not at all, he said seriously. I'm taking you completely seriously. You don't want people close to you. I respect that. But you didn't say anything about people sitting near you while eating lunch? Lisa didn't know what to say to that. She had spent years perfecting the art of pushing people away, and this stranger had just found a loophole she hadn't thought. What's your name? She asked, against her better judgment. Ryan, he said. I'm new in the PT department. Started last month? And you're Lisa, right? From the pediatric ward? She nodded, surprised he knew her name. How did you... I asked. Around, Ryan admitted. I've seen you with the kids. They seem to really love you. Lisa's face darkened. That's exactly the problem. What do you mean? For a moment, Lisa considered telling him about how loving her seemed to be the worst thing that could happen to a person, about the pattern that had followed her since she was a teenager, about why she became a nurse in the first place, to fight against the thing that kept taking people away from her, but she didn't. Instead, she just shook her head. Nothing. Forget it. They sat in silence for a few minutes. Ryan ate his sandwich and occasionally glanced around the cafeteria. Lisa found herself watching him, trying to figure out what his game was. Everyone wanted something. Everyone had an angle. So what's your story? Lisa asked finally. Why did you really sit here? Are you new in town and looking for friends? Trying to date someone from work? What is it? Ryan finished chewing and thought about her question seriously. Honestly? You look sad, really sad, and I know what that feels like. Everyone gets sad sometimes, Lisa said. This wasn't regular. Sad, Ryan replied. This was the kind of sad that comes from losing people. The kind that makes you want to hide from the world because it feels safer than risking more loss. Lisa felt her breath catch. He had seen right through her. I don't know what you're talking about, she lied. Okay, Ryan said simply. He didn't push or try to make her admit anything. Well, regardless, my lunch break is almost over. Thanks for letting me sit here. I didn't let you, Lisa pointed out. You just sat down. True, Ryan grinned. But you didn't call security, so I'm counting it as a win. He stood up and gathered his trash. Same time tomorrow? he asked. I won't be here tomorrow, Lisa said quickly. Okay, how about the day after that? I won't be here then either. Well, I eat lunch here every day at noon, Ryan said. So if you happen to be here and you happen to want some quiet company at a safe distance, I'll be around. Lisa watched him walk away, weaving between the tables of chattering hospital workers. She couldn't figure him out. In her experience, when she told people to stay away, they either got angry or they tried harder to get close. They didn't just accept it and offer to sit nearby. The next day, Lisa ate lunch in the nurse's lounge. But she found herself thinking about Ryan and his strange logic. How he had managed to respect her boundaries while still offering companionship. The day after that, she was back in the cafeteria. She told herself it was because the nurse's lounge was too crowded, but really she was curious. Would he actually be there? At exactly noon, Ryan appeared with his lunch tray. He looked around the cafeteria, spotted Lisa in her corner booth, and walked over. Mind if I sit here? He asked. Just like before, Lisa looked up at him. She could say yes and let him sit closer. She could say no and send him away, or ... duck, quote 3 feet, she said finally, minimum. Ryan smiled and sat down across from her. 3 feet it is. As they ate in comfortable silence, Lisa realized something strange was happening. For the first time in years, she didn't feel completely alone. She felt ... safe, not because Ryan was far away, but because he understood why she needed him to be. Maybe quiet company at a safe distance was exactly what she needed. Maybe it was enough. For now. 3 weeks passed, and somehow Lisa found herself looking forward to lunch breaks. Every day at noon, Ryan would appear in the cafeteria with his tray, ask permission to sit, and then settle into his chair exactly 3 feet away from her. He never tried to get closer, never pushed for personal information, never made her feel like she owed him anything in return for his company. Most days they ate in comfortable silence. Sometimes Ryan would share small stories about his work, like the elderly man learning to walk again after a stroke who insisted on wearing his lucky socks to every session, or the little girl who pretended her crutches were magic wands that could make her fly. Lisa found herself actually listening. She had forgotten what it was like to hear about other people's lives without feeling the weight of their pain. Mrs. Johnson walked 10 whole steps today, Ryan said one afternoon, unwrapping his sandwich, without her walker. She cried happy tears. I may have gotten a little emotional too. How old is she? Lisa asked. 78. She's been working toward this for 3 months. Her granddaughter is getting married next month, and Mrs. Johnson wanted to walk down the aisle at the wedding. Lisa smiled despite herself. Will she make it? Oh, definitely. She's determined. Plus, she told me her late husband proposed to her while they were dancing, so she wants to dance with her granddaughter at the reception. Nothing's going to stop her. These stories were different from the ones Lisa lived with every day. In pediatric nursing, the victories were often small and temporary. Children got better just to get sick again. Families hoped and prayed and sometimes still lost everything, but Ryan's stories were about people fighting their way back to life, about second chances and new beginnings. What made you want to be a physical therapist? Lisa asked one day. Ryan considered the question while chewing. My grandfather, he said finally. He had a heart attack when I was 12. The doctors said he might never walk normally again, but he worked with this amazing PT who never gave up on him. 6 months later, my grandfather was hiking again. He lived another 15 years, all because someone believed he could get better. That's a nice story, Lisa said. What about you? Why nursing? Lisa's smile faded. This was dangerous territory. The real answer involved too much truth, too much pain. I wanted to help people, she said simply. Ryan nodded, not pressing for more. This was what Lisa liked about him. He shared his stories freely but never demanded hers in return. But as the days went on, Lisa found herself watching Ryan more carefully. She noticed how gently he treated everyone around him, how the elderly patients lit up when they saw him coming, how the children in the pediatric ward would wave excitedly when he passed by their rooms on his way to appointments, She also noticed how her coworkers had started gravitating toward him. Nurses would find excuses to walk by the physical therapy department. Doctors would stop to chat with him in the hallways. Even the usually grumpy cafeteria staff smiled when he came through the lunch line. Ryan had this way of making people feel seen and heard. He remembered details about their lives, asked follow-up questions about things they had mentioned weeks ago, celebrated their small victories as if they were his own. Lisa recognized the signs. People were falling for Ryan's kindness. They were letting him into their lives, depending on his warmth and support. It made her nervous. "You're very popular around here," Lisa mentioned one day. Ryan looked confused. "What do you mean?" "Everyone likes you. The staff, the patients, everyone. I like them too," Ryan said. "This is a good place to work. Good people. Doesn't that worry you?" Lisa asked. "Why would it worry me?" Lisa struggled to find words that wouldn't sound crazy. What if something happens? What if you let people down? What if you can't be what they need you to be? Ryan stopped eating and looked at her directly. "Lisa, are you okay?" No, she wanted to say, "I'm not okay. I haven't been okay for years. I've learned that caring about people is dangerous, that letting people care about you is even worse." "I'm fine," she said instead. "I just think it's risky to get too attached to people at work." "Risky how?" Lisa felt trapped. She couldn't explain without sounding paranoid or superstitious. "Things change," she said finally. "People leave, or get transferred, or ... or what? Nothing. Forget it." But Ryan didn't forget it. For the rest of lunch, Lisa could feel him watching her with those kind, careful eyes, like he was trying to solve a puzzle he didn't fully understand yet that afternoon. Lisa was walking past the physical therapy department when she heard laughter coming from one of the treatment rooms. Through the window, she could see Ryan working with an elderly man who was trying to balance on one foot. Every time the man wobbled, they both laughed. The man's wife sat in a chair nearby, clapping and cheering like she was watching an Olympic event. The scene was so full of joy and hope that Lisa had to stop and watch. This was what Ryan brought to people's lives. Light and laughter and the belief that tomorrow could be better than today. But as she watched, a familiar cold fear settled in Lisa's stomach. She had seen this before, had lived this before. Happy moments, loving relationships, people who seemed impossible to lose, and then life would remind her that nothing good lasted forever. Lisa forced herself to walk away from the window. She couldn't let herself care about Ryan's happiness. She couldn't let herself hope that maybe this time would be different, because it never was. That night, Lisa lay in bed staring at the ceiling. For 3 weeks, she had enjoyed having lunch with Ryan. For 3 weeks, she had felt almost normal, but normal was dangerous. Normal made you forget that some people were meant to be alone. Maybe it was time to go back to eating lunch in the nurse's lounge. Maybe 3 feet wasn't far enough. After all, Lisa had been avoiding the cafeteria for 5 days when everything fell apart. It was a Tuesday night shift, the kind that stretched endlessly under fluorescent lights. Lisa was working in the pediatric ward as she had for the past 3 years. She loved the kids, even though loving them scared her more than anything else in the world. Tonight she was taking care of Mia, a 7-year-old with leukemia who had been in and out of the hospital for months. Mia had curly brown hair that was just starting to grow back after her last round of chemotherapy. She had a gap-toothed smile and a laugh that could fill an entire room. Lisa had tried so hard not to get attached to Mia. She had learned the hard way that pediatric nursing meant saying goodbye far too often. But Mia was special. She drew pictures for all the nurses, told silly jokes when other kids were scared, and somehow managed to find something to be excited about every single day. "Nurse Lisa," Mia had said earlier that evening, "when I get better, I'm going to be a doctor just like Dr. Peterson, and I'm going to take care of kids just like you do." "That sounds like a wonderful plan," Lisa had replied, checking Mia's foreline and trying not to think about how pale the little girl looked. But around 2 in the morning, everything changed as the monitor started beeping. Mia's fever spiked. Her breathing became labored. Lisa called for the doctor, but even as the medical team rushed into the room, she could see it in their faces. They were losing her. Lisa held Mia's small hand as the doctors worked frantically around them. She whispered all the things she wished she could say louder. That Mia was brave and beautiful and loved. That she had made every day brighter for everyone who knew her. That the world was going to miss her smile. At 3:47 a.m., Mia's heart stopped beating. Lisa had been through this before. Too many times. She knew the protocol. She knew how to stay professional, how to support the family, how to deal with the paperwork and the grief counselors, and all the practical things that came after a child died, but this time was different. This time Lisa felt something break. Inside her chest, she managed to hold it together until Mia's parents said their final goodbyes. She stayed professional while the other nurses cleaned up and filled out forms. She answered questions from the doctors and spoke to the grief counselor about supporting the other children on the ward, but when everything was finally quiet, Lisa found herself in the supply closet, sitting on the floor between boxes of medical supplies, crying harder than she had in years. This was why she couldn't let people get close. This was why she ate lunch alone and went home to an empty apartment and built walls around her heart. Because caring about people meant living with the constant fear of losing them. And losing them meant feeling like your world was ending over. And over again, Lisa didn't know how long she had been crying when the closet door opened. "Lisa?" She looked up to see Ryan standing in the doorway. He was wearing scrubs instead of his usual physical therapy uniform, and he looked tired. "What are you doing here?" Lisa asked, wiping her face with her sleeve. "I was working late with a patient upstairs. I heard about what happened. One of the nurses told me you might be—" He trailed off, taking in her tear-stained face and the way she was curled up on the floor. "I'm fine," Lisa said automatically. Ryan didn't say anything. He just stepped into the closet and sat down on the floor across from her. Not too close, she noticed. Still respecting that 3-foot rule, even here. "You don't look fine," he said gently. "I said I'm fine," Lisa repeated, but her voice cracked on the words. "Okay," Ryan said, "you're fine. But can I sit here with you while you're fine?" Lisa wanted to tell him to leave. Wanted to push him away like she pushed everyone away. But she was so tired of being alone with her grief. Her name was Mia, Lisa said quietly. She was 7 years old. She wanted to be a doctor when she grew up. Ryan nodded, listening. "She drew me a picture last week," Lisa continued. "It was supposed to be me, but I had purple hair and a cape because she said all the best nurses should have superpowers." "She sounds special," Ryan said. Lisa's voice broke again. "She was so brave. Even when she was scared, she would smile and tell jokes to make the other kids feel better. She should have had a whole life ahead of her. She should have grown up and become a doctor and helped other kids," and the words turned into sobs. Lisa buried her face in her hands, feeling the weight of all the losses she had tried so hard to carry alone. She felt Ryan move closer, heard him settling next to her against the wall, not touching, but close enough that she could feel his presence. Sorry," Lisa whispered. "For what? For falling apart? For crying all over you, for being a mess." "Lisa," Ryan said softly, "you just lost someone you cared about, someone who trusted you to take care of her. Falling apart doesn't make you weak, it makes you human." "But I'm supposed to be professional, I'm supposed to be able to handle this." "Says who?" Lisa looked up at him. "Everyone, the hospital. The training, you're supposed to maintain emotional distance." "That's bullshit," Ryan said, and the unexpected curse word made Lisa almost smile through her tears. "Is it?" "Absolutely. You know what makes someone a good nurse? Caring. Really caring about the people you're taking care of. And you can't really care about someone without it hurting when you lose them." Lisa wiped her nose with a tissue Ryan had somehow produced from his pocket. "But it hurts so much." "I know," Ryan said. "But think about Mia. Think about how much your caring meant to her. How much safer and less scared she felt because you were there with her. That little girl spent her last weeks being loved and cared for by someone who genuinely saw her as special. That's not nothing, Lisa. That's everything." They sat in silence. For a while, Lisa felt empty and exhausted, but also something else. Something she hadn't felt in a long time when dealing with loss. She felt understood. "How do you do it?" Lisa asked eventually. "How do you let yourself care about people when you know you might lose them?" Ryan was quiet for a long moment. "Because the alternative is worse," he said finally. "The alternative is going through life never really connecting with anyone. Never really mattering to anyone. And that's not living. That's just existing. But what if caring about people is dangerous? What if some people bring bad luck to everyone they love?" Ryan turned to. "Look at her. Lisa, do you really believe that?" "I don't know what I believe anymore," Lisa admitted. "Well, I know what I believe," Ryan said. "I believe that Mia was lucky to have you as her nurse. I believe that every kid you've taken care of has been better off because you cared about them. And I believe that pushing people away doesn't protect them from anything except from knowing how much they matter to you." Lisa felt fresh tears starting, but this time they felt different. Less like drowning and more like rain washing something clean. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For sitting with me. For not trying to fix me or tell me everything happens for a reason or any of that stuff. Sometimes people just need someone to sit with them in the dark," Ryan said. "That's all." They sat together until Lisa's shift ended, talking sometimes and sitting quietly sometimes. And for the first time since she was a teenager, Lisa didn't feel completely alone with her grief. Maybe Ryan was right. Maybe caring about people was worth the risk of losing them. Maybe she had been hiding from the wrong thing all along. After that night in the supply closet, something changed between Lisa and Ryan. The careful distance they had maintained seemed to shrink without either of them really noticing. Lisa found herself looking forward to their lunch conversations more than she wanted to admit. Ryan had started sharing more personal stories, and somehow Lisa had begun sharing some of her own. Nothing too deep, nothing too dangerous, but small pieces of herself that she had kept locked away for years. Ryan told her about his family, his parents who ran a small bookstore, his younger sister who was studying to be a teacher, his grandmother who had taught him to cook and still called him every Sunday to make sure he was eating enough vegetables. Lisa found herself talking about her work, really talking about it, about the children who had touched her heart over the years, about why she had chosen pediatric nursing despite how difficult it could be, about the small victories that made all the heartbreak worthwhile. It felt good to be heard. It felt good to matter to someone, and that terrified her. The turning point came on a Friday afternoon when Ryan appeared at the nurse's station looking nervous. "Hey," he said, fidgeting with a coffee cup. "I was wondering if maybe you'd like to grab dinner. Sometime outside of here, I mean. There's this little Italian place I've been wanting to try, and I thought maybe. The panic hit Lisa like a physical blow. This was exactly what she had been afraid of. The careful boundaries they had built were crumbling, and Ryan was asking for more than quiet company at a safe distance. "I can't," Lisa said quickly. "Oh," Ryan said, looking confused. "Okay, maybe another time." "No, I mean I can't. Ever. I don't do that." "Do what?" "Date, relationships, any of it." Lisa could hear her voice getting sharper, more defensive. "I thought I made it clear that I keep my distance from people." Ryan set down his coffee cup and looked at her carefully. "Lisa, it's just dinner. I'm not asking you to marry me." But Lisa was already pulling back, already building the walls back up. That night, she went home and did something she hadn't done in months. She researched Ryan online. She found his social media accounts, his professional profiles, anything that could tell her about his life outside the hospital. What she found made everything worse. Ryan came from a close-knit family. He had photos of himself at family gatherings, birthday parties, holiday celebrations. He coached a youth basketball team on weekends. He volunteered at a literacy program for adults learning to read. He was the kind of person who was woven into his community, who had people depending on him. Lisa stared at a photo of Ryan with his arm around an elderly woman who was clearly his grandmother. They were both laughing at something outside the frame. And the love between them was obvious even through a computer screen. His grandmother looked healthy and happy now, but she was in her 80s. His parents were probably in their 60s. His sister was young, but she was driving a car and living on her own and doing all the things that could go wrong at any moment. Ryan had so much to lose. So many people who loved him and needed him. And Lisa was supposed to add herself to that list. She was supposed to become another person whose heart would break if something happened to him. Another person who might somehow bring her curse into his perfect, happy life. The next Monday, Lisa didn't go to the cafeteria for lunch. Instead, she ate a granola bar at the nurse's station while catching up on paperwork. When one of her coworkers asked if she was feeling okay, Lisa said she was trying to eat healthier, and the cafeteria food was too tempting. Tuesday, she ate in the break room with some of the other nurses. When they asked where she usually ate lunch, Lisa said she preferred to socialize more with her colleagues. Wednesday, she brought lunch from home and ate it in the hospital courtyard, even though it was cold and gray outside, but Ryan wasn't stupid. By Thursday, he had figured out that Lisa was avoiding him. He appeared at the nurse's station just before her lunch break, looking concerned. "Hey," he said, "everything okay? I haven't seen you around lately." "I've been busy," Lisa said without looking up from her computer. "Too busy for lunch?" "I've been eating with my coworkers." Trying to be more social, Ryan was quiet for a moment. When Lisa finally looked up, he was studying her face with that careful expression she had come to know well. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked. "No," Lisa said. "You didn't do anything wrong? Then why does it feel like you're mad at me?" "I'm not mad at you, Ryan. I'm just, taking some space." "Space from what?" Lisa felt trapped. She couldn't explain without sounding crazy or paranoid. "From getting too comfortable," she said finally. "Too comfortable with what? Having a friend?" "Yes," Lisa said, and immediately regretted how harsh it sounded. Ryan looked like she had slapped him. "I see," he said quietly. "Ryan, it's not personal. I told you from the beginning that I don't get close to people. I thought we were past that. Well, we're not." "Because I asked you to dinner?" Lisa felt her defenses rising. "Because you're getting attached. Because you're trying to turn this into something it's not. And what exactly do you think I'm trying to turn it into? A relationship? A friendship? Something that requires me to care about you and you to care about me?" "God forbid," Ryan said, and there was hurt in his voice now. "You don't understand," Lisa said desperately. "Then explain it to me." But Lisa couldn't. How could she tell him? That every person she had ever loved had been taken away from her? How could she explain that she was convinced that letting him into her life would somehow put him in danger? "I can't," she said. "I just can't do this." Ryan stood there for a long moment, looking at her like he was trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. "Okay," he said finally. "If that's what you want, it is. Then I'll respect that. But Lisa, what?" "Whatever you're afraid of, running away isn't going to fix it." After he left, Lisa sat at the nurse's station feeling hollowed out and empty. She told herself she had done the right thing. She had protected Ryan from whatever bad luck seemed to follow her. She had protected herself from the inevitable pain of losing someone else she cared about. But if she had done the right thing, why did it feel so wrong? That weekend, Lisa cleaned her apartment from top to bottom, trying to distract herself from the loneliness that felt deeper than usual. She found herself checking her phone constantly, half hoping Ryan might text her, half afraid that he would. He did and single quotes. Monday came and went without any sign of him. Tuesday too. By Wednesday, Lisa realized that Ryan was respecting her wishes completely. He wasn't seeking her out, wasn't trying to change her mind, wasn't making any attempt to bridge the gap she had created. She should have been relieved. Instead, she felt like she had lost something precious that she might never get back. And the worst part was, it was entirely her own fault. 2 weeks passed without a word between them. Lisa told herself this was for the best, even as she found herself taking longer routes through the hospital. Just to avoid the physical therapy department. She had successfully returned to her old life of careful isolation. She ate lunch alone, went home to her empty apartment, and spent her evenings watching television shows that required no emotional investment, Everything was back to normal. Safe and predictable and lonely. It was a Thursday morning when Lisa first noticed that Ryan wasn't at work. She had developed a habit of glancing toward the PT department during her rounds, even though she pretended not to care if she saw him. But today his usual spot was empty, and another therapist was working with his regular patients. Lisa told herself it was none of her business. People took sick days. People had appointments or family obligations or any number of reasons for not being at work, but by Friday, when Ryan still hadn't appeared, Lisa found herself lingering near the PT department during her break. "Excuse me," she said to Jake, one of the other physical therapists. "Is Ryan okay? I noticed he hasn't been here the past couple days." Jake looked up from his paperwork with a concerned expression. "You haven't heard?" Lisa felt something cold settle in her stomach. "Heard what?" "He was in an accident. Motorcycle crash on Tuesday night. He's at Memorial Hospital across town." The world seemed to tilt sideways. Lisa gripped the doorframe to steady herself. "Is he ... How bad is it?" "Concussion. Broken ribs, some road rash. Could have been a lot worse. He's conscious and talking, but they're keeping him for observation." Lisa nodded and walked away as calmly as she could, but inside she was screaming. This was exactly what she had been afraid of. The moment she had let herself care about Ryan, even a little bit, something terrible had happened to him. The curse that seemed to follow her had found another victim. She made it through the rest of her shift on autopilot, going through the motions of caring for her patients while her mind raced with terrible possibilities. What if Ryan's injuries were worse than Jake had said? What if there were complications? What if she lost him too? But underneath the fear was something even worse. Guilt. This was her fault. She had pushed Ryan away to protect him, but clearly it hadn't worked. Maybe if she had been there, if they had still been friends, she could have somehow prevented this. Maybe he had been distracted because of their fight. Maybe he had been upset and not paying attention while he was writing. Lisa knew her logic was flawed, but she couldn't shake the feeling that she was responsible for Ryan's accident. After her shift ended, Lisa found herself driving across town to Memorial Hospital before she could talk herself out of it. She told herself she just needed to see that he was okay, that once she confirmed he was alive and recovering, she could go back to her life of careful distance. But when she reached his room and saw him lying in the hospital bed, connected to monitors and looking pale and bruised, all her careful resolutions crumbled. "Lisa?" Ryan's voice was hoarse and surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I heard about the accident," she said, hovering in the doorway like she might bolt at any moment. "How did you ... Oh, right. Hospital gossip travels fast." Lisa stepped closer, taking in the extent of his injuries. His left arm was in a sling. There were scrapes and bruises along his face and neck, and she could see the edge of bandages under his hospital gown. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Like I got hit by a truck," Ryan said, then winced as he tried to adjust his position. Technically, it was a van that ran a red light, but the effect was about the same. "It wasn't your fault," Lisa said quickly. "No, it wasn't. Although the helmet saved my life, so I guess all those safety lectures my sister gave me finally paid off." Lisa pulled a chair closer to his bed and sat down. "I brought you something," she said, pulling a container from her bag. "Soup from the cafeteria. I know it's not great, but I thought—" She trailed off, realizing how presumptuous this was. They weren't friends anymore. She had no right to show up here with soup and concern. "Thank you," Ryan said softly. That's really thoughtful." They sat in awkward silence for a moment. Lisa stared at her hands, trying to find the right words. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "For what? For this?" "For you being here? For ... Lisa," Ryan interrupted gently. "You know this isn't your fault, right?" Lisa looked up at him, startled. "What?" "The accident. You're not responsible for some guy running a red light. But if we hadn't fought, if I hadn't pushed you away, ... what? I would have been magically protected from bad drivers?" Lisa felt tears starting to form. "You don't understand. This is what happens. This is what always happens." "What always happens?" "People I care about get hurt. People I love." Lisa stopped, realizing what she had almost said. Ryan was looking at her with those kind, careful eyes. Lisa, what happened to you? What made you so afraid of caring about people? For a moment, Lisa considered telling him everything. About David, her high school boyfriend who had died in a car accident 3 weeks after they said they loved each other. About Michael, her college fiancé who had been diagnosed with brain cancer just months before their wedding. About her little sister Anna, who had died of a rare genetic disorder when Lisa was in nursing school. About how she had become convinced that loving her was the worst thing that could happen to a person, but she couldn't say any of it. The words felt too big, too dangerous. I should go, she said instead, standing up abruptly. Lisa, wait. But she was already heading for the door. I'm glad you're okay, she said without turning around. I'm glad you're going to be fine. Lisa, please don't leave like this. But she was already gone, practically running down the hospital corridor. God, as she drove home, Lisa felt like she was drowning. Seeing Ryan hurt and vulnerable had confirmed her worst fears. Caring about him was dangerous for both of them, but walking away from him again felt like tearing her own heart out for the first time in years. Lisa wondered if maybe the problem wasn't that she brought bad luck to people she loved. Maybe the problem was that she was so afraid of losing people that she was throwing away any chance of happiness before life could take it from her. Maybe the real tragedy wasn't the accidents and illnesses that had taken people from her. Maybe the real tragedy was all the love she had refused to give and receive because she was too scared to risk her heart again. But even knowing that didn't make it easier to be brave. Some fears run too deep to be reasoned away, no matter how much you want to overcome them. Lisa couldn't stay away. Every day for the next week, she found herself making excuses to visit Memorial Hospital. She told herself she was just checking on a colleague, being professional and courteous. But really, she needed to see that Ryan was getting better. She brought him real food to replace the hospital meals. She brought books and magazines she thought he might like. She brought updates about his patients and coworkers who were asking about him. Ryan never questioned why she kept coming back, even though she had run away from him twice now. He just accepted her visits with quiet gratitude, as if he understood that she was fighting some internal battle that had nothing to do with him. On Friday afternoon, Lisa found Ryan sitting up in bed, looking much better than he had all week. The worst of the bruising was fading, and he was moving more easily. Good news, he said when she walked in. They're releasing me tomorrow morning. I'll be back to work in 2 weeks. That's wonderful, Lisa said, and meant it. But she also felt a strange sadness. Once Ryan was out of the hospital, she would have no excuse to keep visiting him. They would go back to being strangers who avoided each other in the hallways. Lisa, Ryan said carefully, can I ask you something? She tensed. What? Why did you come here that first day? After our fight, after you made it clear you didn't want to be friends, why did you show up when you heard about the accident? Lisa had been dreading this question all week. I told you. I wanted to make sure you were okay, but why? If you don't care about me, if you don't want to be in my life, why would it matter if I was okay or not? Lisa felt trapped. She couldn't answer honestly without revealing too much, but she couldn't lie either. Not to Ryan, not after everything. It's complicated, she said finally. I have time, Ryan said. And frankly, I'm tired of pretending I understand what's going on with you, because clearly you do care. You've been here every day this week. You bring me food and books and stories from work. You ask about my pain levels and whether I'm sleeping well. That's not the behavior of someone who doesn't care. Lisa sat down heavily in the visitor's chair. You're right, she said quietly. I do care, that's the problem. How is caring about someone a problem? Lisa took a deep breath. This was it. She was either going to tell him the truth or she was going to lose him forever. Because everyone I've ever cared about has died, she said. Ryan was quiet for a long moment. Everyone? Everyone who mattered. Everyone I loved. Tell me, Ryan said gently. So Lisa did. She told him about David, her first real boyfriend in high school, how they had been inseparable for 2 years, how he had been planning to propose after graduation. How he was killed by a drunk driver 3 weeks after they first said, "I love you," to each other. She told him about Michael, her college fiancé. How they had met in a chemistry class and fallen in love over late-night study sessions. How they had planned a simple wedding for right after graduation. How he started getting headaches during their senior year. How the doctors found the brain tumor. How she spent 6 months watching the love of her life slowly slip away from her. She told him about Anna, her younger sister by 4 years. How Anna had been the bright light in their family, full of dreams and plans and endless optimism. How she had been diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder at 19. How she had fought it for 2 years before finally losing the battle. After Anna died, Lisa said, her voice barely above a whisper, I realized there was a pattern. Everyone I loved died young. Everyone I let myself care about got taken away from me. So you became a nurse, Ryan said. I thought if I could save other people, maybe I could balance out all the loss. Maybe I could fight back against whatever force seemed to be targeting everyone I loved. And you've been alone ever since. Lisa nodded. It seemed safer for everyone. Ryan was quiet for a long time, processing what she had told him. Lisa waited for him to say something about coincidence or bad luck or how she was being irrational. Instead, he said, That must have been incredibly lonely. The kindness in his voice nearly broke her. It was, she admitted, but lonely felt safer than losing someone else. Lisa, Ryan said carefully, can I tell you something about my life? She nodded. My best friend in high school killed himself when we were 17, Ryan said. My grandmother who raised me after my parents' divorce died of cancer when I was in college. My mentor in PT school, the man who inspired me to go into this field, had a heart attack and died when I was 25. Lisa looked up at him in surprise. I've lost people too, Ryan continued. People I loved, people who shaped who I am. And for a while I thought about protecting myself the way you have. I thought about keeping everyone at arm's length so it wouldn't hurt so much when I lost them. What changed your mind? I realized that avoiding love doesn't bring back the people you've lost. It just guarantees that their deaths were even more meaningless than they already seemed. Lisa felt tears starting to fall. But what if caring about you puts you in danger somehow? What if there's something wrong with me that brings bad luck to people I love? Then I guess that's a risk I'm willing to take, Ryan said simply. You don't understand. You could die. I could die anyway, Ryan pointed out. I could get hit by another car tomorrow, or have a heart attack, or get cancer, or any of 1,000 other things. That's just part of being human. But if I stay away from you, if you stay away from me, I'll still be mortal. I'll still be at risk of all the same things. The only difference is that I'll miss out on whatever time we could have had together. Lisa wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I'm scared, Ryan. I'm so scared of losing you too. I know, he said. But Lisa, think about David and Michael and Anna. If they could come back for just one day, what do you think they would want? Would they want you to spend the rest of your life alone because you're afraid of losing more people? Or would they want you to live and love and be happy? Lisa closed her eyes, thinking about her sister's bright smile, about Michael's terrible jokes, about David's dreams for their future together. They'd want me to be happy, she whispered. And are you happy? Living the way you've been living? No, Lisa admitted. I'm not. Then maybe it's time to try a different way. Lisa opened her eyes and looked at Ryan, really looked at him. This kind, patient man who had somehow seen through all her walls and defenses to the scared, lonely person underneath, who had respected her boundaries while still showing her that someone cared, who was willing to risk her imaginary curse just for the chance to be in her life. I don't know how to not be afraid, she said. You don't have to stop being afraid? Ryan said, you just have to be afraid and brave at the same time. Is that possible? I don't know, Ryan said honestly. But I think we should find out. Lisa felt something shift inside her chest. Not the disappearance of fear, but something bigger than fear, something that felt like hope. Okay, she said quietly. Okay? Okay, let's find out. Ryan smiled, and for the first time in years, Lisa smiled back without holding anything in reserve. Maybe. Being brave didn't mean not being scared. Maybe being brave meant caring about someone despite being terrified of losing them. Maybe love was always a risk worth taking. Ryan's recovery gave them both time to figure out what being brave together actually meant. For the first few days after he was discharged from the hospital, Lisa found herself checking her phone constantly. Every time it rang, her heart would race with the fear that something else had happened to him. Every time he was a few minutes late responding to a text, she imagined the worst, but slowly, gradually, Lisa began to realize something important. The fear was still there, but it wasn't paralyzing her anymore. She was afraid and functioning. Scared and still showing up. Ryan seemed to understand that she needed to take things slowly. When he returned to work, he didn't immediately try to resume their old lunch routine. Instead, he would just wave when he saw her in the hallways, or send her funny memes that reminded him of stories she had told him. Small gestures that said, "I'm here," without demanding anything in return. One afternoon, about 3 weeks after the accident, Ryan appeared at the nurse's station with 2 cups of coffee. "Peace offering," he said, setting 1 cup down in front of her. "What are we making peace about?" Lisa asked. "Nothing specific. I just thought maybe we could try the lunch thing again. If you want to, no pressure." Lisa looked at the coffee cup, then at Ryan's careful, hopeful expression. She thought about all the lunch hours she had spent alone over the past few months, and how much she had missed their conversations. 3 feet, she said finally. Ryan grinned. 3 feet minimum, I promise. So they started having lunch together again, but everything felt different now. The careful distance was still there, but it felt less like a wall and more like a choice. Lisa was choosing to let Ryan into her life gradually at a pace that felt manageable, and Ryan was choosing to be patient with her fears. Even when they seemed irrational, Lisa found herself talking more freely than she had in years. She told Ryan about her childhood, about her dreams of becoming a doctor before she decided nursing was a better fit. She told him about her parents, who lived across the country and worried about her but respected her need for independence. Ryan shared more of his own story too. He told her about growing up in a house full of books, about learning to cook from his grandmother, about the basketball team he coached and how proud he was when one of his kids got a college scholarship. They talked about work, but they also talked about everything else. Movies and music and books, their fears and hopes and the things that made them laugh. Lisa began to remember what it felt like to have a friend, but she also began to want more than friendship. And that terrified her all over again. It was a Friday evening when everything changed. Lisa was working a late shift, and Ryan had stayed after hours to finish some paperwork. They found themselves in the elevator together at the end of the day. "Want to grab dinner?" Ryan asked as they reached the parking garage. Actual dinner, outside the hospital. At a real restaurant, Lisa felt the familiar panic rising in her chest. This was exactly what she had run from before. The moment when friendship turned into something more, something riskier. "I don't." "No," she said. "It's just dinner, Lisa. We both have to eat anyway." "But it's not just dinner," Lisa said. "It's a date. And dates lead to relationships, and relationships lead to..." "To what?" Ryan asked gently. "To me falling in love with you," Lisa said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. Ryan was quiet for a moment. "Would that be such a terrible thing?" "Yes," Lisa said immediately. "Because then I'd have even more to lose, or more to gain." Lisa shook her head. "You don't understand. Every time I've fallen in love, something awful has happened. I can't go through that again." "Lisa," Ryan said, stepping closer but still respecting that invisible boundary between them, "I can't promise you that nothing bad will ever happen to me. I can't promise you that we'll have 50 years together, or even 5 years. Nobody can promise that. Then why risk it? Because the alternative is guaranteeing that we'll have nothing together, and I think we could have something beautiful if you'd let us try." Lisa felt tears starting. "I'm so tired of being scared all the time." "Then stop," Ryan said simply. "It's not that easy, isn't it? You've already started." You're here, talking to me, caring about me despite all your fears. You've already made the choice to let me matter to you. But this is different. This is bigger. Only because you're making it bigger. It's just dinner, Lisa. One dinner. We can take everything else one day at a time. Lisa looked at Ryan standing there in the dim light of the parking garage, waiting for her answer. He looked tired but hopeful, patient but not passive. He was offering her exactly what she had been too afraid to ask for, a chance to try loving someone without any guarantees. What if I can't do it? She asked. What if I get too scared and run away again? Then I guess we'll deal with that when it happens. But Lisa, what if you can do it? What if this time is different? Lisa thought about the past few months. About how Ryan had respected her boundaries while still showing her that she mattered. About how he had sat with her in the supply closet when she was grieving. About how he had been patient with her fears even when they seemed unreasonable, she thought. About David and Michael and Anna and what they would want for her. Not a life spent hiding from love, but a life spent embracing it despite the risks. Okay, she said quietly. Okay, let's go to dinner. Ryan's smile lit up his entire face. Really? Really, but I'm probably going to be anxious and weird about it. I'm counting on it, Ryan said. Anxious and weird is part of your charm. As they walked to Ryan's car, Lisa felt something she hadn't experienced in years. She felt hopeful about the future. Not because she was no longer afraid of losing him, but because she was finally ready to risk her heart for the chance at happiness. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time love would last, or maybe it wouldn't, and she would have to survive another devastating loss. But either way, she was tired of living her life as if it had already ended. Either way, she was ready to choose love over fear. At least for tonight, at least for dinner, and maybe if she was really brave, for whatever came after that. The restaurant Ryan chose was small and quiet, with soft lighting and the kind of atmosphere that encouraged long conversations. As they settled into their booth, Lisa felt nervous but not panicked. This was new territory for her. Choosing to be vulnerable instead of running away. Choosing to hope instead of expecting the worst. So, Ryan said, looking at her across the table, this is nice. It is, Lisa agreed, surprised by how true that was. Maybe being brave didn't have to feel like jumping off a cliff. Maybe sometimes being brave felt like sitting across from someone you cared about and deciding to see what happened next. Maybe that was enough for now. 1 year later, Lisa stood in front of her bathroom mirror, adjusting her dress for the third time. She was nervous, but it was a different kind of nervous than she was used to. This wasn't the panic-inducing terror of expecting something terrible to happen. This was the flutter of excitement that came with anticipating something wonderful. Today was their wedding day. The past year had been a journey of small, brave choices. After that first dinner, they had taken everything slowly. Lisa had needed time to learn how to love someone without constantly waiting for disaster to strike. Ryan had needed time to understand the depth of her fears and how to support her through them. There had been setbacks. Times when Lisa's anxiety got the better of her and she would pull away, certain that their happiness was too good to last. Times when Ryan got frustrated with her inability to simply trust that they could have a normal relationship, but they had worked through each challenge together. Lisa had started seeing a therapist who helped her understand that grief and fear were normal responses to loss, but they didn't have to control her entire life. Ryan had learned to recognize when Lisa was spiraling into worry and how to ground her in the present moment. Slowly, gradually, Lisa had begun to believe that maybe she wasn't cursed after all. Maybe she had just been incredibly unlucky in her youth. And that tragedy didn't define her entire future. Maybe some people got second chances at love. The wedding was small and simple, held in the hospital chapel where they had first met. It seemed fitting somehow, this place where people came to be healed, where Lisa had learned to heal her own heart. Most of the guests were hospital staff who had watched their relationship develop over the past year. Dr. Peterson, who had become something of a mentor to Lisa, Jake, and the other physical therapists who had covered for Ryan during his recovery. The nurses from the pediatric ward who had celebrated with Lisa when she finally admitted she was in love. Ryan's family had driven in from out of state. His parents, his sister, who was now a teacher, his grandmother, who Lisa had been nervous to meet but who had immediately welcomed her with open arms. "You're the one who brought the smile back to his eyes," Ryan's grandmother had said when they first met. "I can see why he loves you so much." Lisa's own parents had flown in as well, still worried about their daughter but clearly relieved to see her happy again. They had liked Ryan immediately, drawn to his gentle nature and the obvious way he adored their daughter Dot as Lisa made her final preparations. She thought about the people who couldn't be there. David, who would have been happy that she had found love again. Michael, who had always wanted her to promise him that she would move on and be happy if something happened to him. Anna, who had spent her final months urging Lisa not to let grief consume her life. For the first time in years, thinking about them didn't fill Lisa with crushing sadness. Instead, she felt their love and their blessing on this new chapter of her life. "Ready?" asked Jenny, one of the pediatric nurses who was serving as her maid of honor. Lisa took one last look in the mirror. She was wearing Anna's pearl necklace and carrying a bouquet that included flowers from Ryan's grandmother's garden. Something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue, all the traditional elements that connected her to the people who had loved her and the new life she was building. "I'm ready," she said. The ceremony was beautiful in its simplicity. Ryan waited for her at the altar wearing a navy suit and the biggest smile she had ever seen. His eyes filled with tears when he saw her walking down the aisle, and Lisa felt her own eyes well up in response. When it came time for their vows, Lisa spoke from her heart about the journey that had brought them together. "A year ago," she said, "I was convinced that loving someone was the most dangerous thing I could do. I thought that caring about you would somehow put you at risk, or guarantee that I would lose you. I was so afraid of grief that I was choosing loneliness instead." She paused, looking into Ryan's eyes. "But you taught me that love isn't something to be afraid of. Yes, loving someone means risking loss, but it also means choosing hope over fear, connection over isolation, joy over safety. You showed me that I could be scared and brave at the same time, that I could honor the people I've lost while still building a life with the person I love now. So I promise you this: I will sit beside you quietly when you need peace. I will hold your hand when you're afraid. I will celebrate your victories and comfort you through your defeats. And I will love you every day, not despite the fact that nothing lasts forever, but because nothing lasts forever. Whatever time we have together, whether it's 50 years or 50 days, I promise to make it count." Ryan's vows were equally heartfelt. He promised to be patient with her fears, to support her through her difficult days, and to remind her every day that she was worthy of love and happiness. "You warned me to stay away from you," he said, echoing their first conversation. "And I said I would just sit beside you quietly. Today, I'm asking if I can sit beside you quietly for the rest of our lives." When they kissed, the small chapel erupted in applause and cheers. Lisa felt overwhelmed with joy and gratitude and the simple miracle of being loved. The reception was held in the hospital cafeteria where they had shared so many lunches together. The same tables where Lisa had once eaten alone were now filled with friends and family celebrating their love. Their first dance was to a song about taking chances and believing in second chances. As they swayed together, Lisa marveled at how different this felt from the relationships of her youth. This wasn't the desperate, all-consuming love of teenagers who thought they had forever. This was the deeper, more grounded love of adults, who understood that time was precious and that every day together was a gift. "No regrets?" Ryan whispered in her ear as they danced. "None," Lisa said, and meant it completely. Later, as they cut the cake and toasted with their guests, Lisa caught sight of the pediatric ward through the cafeteria windows. She thought about all the children she had cared for over the years, and how she had learned from them that even short lives could be full of love and meaning. She thought about Mia, the little girl she had lost the night Ryan first sat with her in the supply closet. Mia, who had lived only 7 years but had spent those years bringing joy to everyone around her. Maybe that was the lesson Lisa had needed to learn. Maybe life wasn't about avoiding loss or protecting yourself from pain. Maybe life was about loving as fully as possible while you had the chance. Maybe love was always worth the risk. As the evening wound down and their guests began to leave, Ryan and Lisa found themselves alone in the cafeteria where their story had begun. So Ryan said, pulling her close, "What do you think? Ready for the next chapter?" Lisa looked around the room where she had once sat alone, afraid to let anyone get close, where Ryan had asked permission to sit down and had somehow changed the entire course of her life. "I think," she said, "I'm ready for whatever comes next." "As long as you're sitting beside me, always," Ryan promised. "Even when you tell me to stay away." "Especially then," Lisa agreed. They sat down at their old table, still in their wedding clothes, holding hands across the 3 feet that had once felt like the safest distance in the world. Now, it just felt like the perfect distance to lean across for a kiss. Outside the cafeteria windows, the sun was setting over the city. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new joys, new patients to care for and new memories to build together. But for now, they sat quietly together, two people who had learned that the bravest thing you can do is love someone completely, even when you know that nothing lasts forever. Especially when you know that nothing lasts forever. Because in the end, love isn't about having guarantees. It's about choosing each other again and again for whatever time you have, and that choice, Lisa had finally learned, was always worth making.